the affirmation already sort of gave away all the answers that we were looking at, but really remembering who we already are. One of Yogananda's definitions of realizing the self, of self-realization, is knowing in body, mind, and soul that we are already one with God, that His omnipresence is our omnipresence, and all we need to do is improve our knowing. So improving our knowing, it sounds pretty easy, doesn't it? We need to improve our knowing. How do we do that? Well, the obvious answer that the things that we do every day, the things that we do every week here, meditate, improve our knowing of who we really are. That God is in everything, that we are in everything, that we are a part of all that is. There's nothing like meditation to help you expand beyond your little form and expand your consciousness into something much, much greater than you are. God is infinite consciousness, and we want to connect with that. One of the definitions that Yogananda gave of divine consciousness is center everywhere, circumference nowhere. So how can we start from exactly where we are and start to understand, how can I make that my consciousness? Well, like anything we really want to learn, we have to put out a sincere effort. We can study. We need to dive deep into the topic. One of the analogies that Yogananda used in feeling that we are a part of all that is he used the example of lights. You know, there's outside on the road, there's a street light, it's on all night long. And we have these lights on our ceiling, which actually look different than the lights on the wall, which look very different than my little light that I have right next to my bed, my little reading light. All those lights look so different. And yet if the power goes off right here at the transformer, all those lights go off. So they share something very much in common. One power that is flowing through these wires is what illuminates them all. So God's power that flows through all of us illuminate all of us. And even though we look so different, and we look so separate, and we all have different jobs, and we all have different goals, it's God's consciousness that flows through each of us that makes us all the same underneath. Islands look different, you know. The Andaman Islands all look different. They're all connected underneath. No man is an island. And when Swami Kriyananda was in the ashram with Yoganandaji put him in charge of the monks, and he thought, wow, you know, let's spend some time together. He organized picnics, he organized different outings to the beach, different times that they could spend together. Of course, they already had meals together, so he was trying to make them feel more bonded, and they did get to know each other better. But then when he said, let's take a seclusion together, let's dive deep, let's be in silence, in meals, and let's meditate together all the time during this period, whatever that period was. And they realized that when they were meditating together, they all felt so much closer than when they were going to the beach and going on these other outings together, because they all reached down to that inner depth of who they each were, and they communed at that inner level. So again, that's another example of the way that meditation helps us all reach that bottom of the sea, that we can see that all of us are not islands, that we're all connected. When we chant, wave of the sea, dissolve in the sea, I am the bubble, make me the sea. We want to become one with that infinite sea, which is a part of all that is. So we need to dive deep from right where we are. Taking seclusion, like Swami and the monks did. Yogananda said, seclusion is the price of greatness. What do we do in seclusion? You know, we have nowhere to go, nobody to see, nobody to dress up for, nobody to talk to. What do we do in seclusion? We can dive deep and we can ask ourselves, we can introspect. Who are we really? am I? Who am I? That's the inquiry. Ramana Maharshi was known for that inquiry. And just ask ourselves, and everything that we're not, slowly peel off. No, I'm not that. I am not a housewife. I am not a businessman. I am not identified by what I have, what's in my bank account, what country I come from, what political party I like. That's not who I am. Then who am I? So then you start peeling it off. You just go deeper and deeper. And then you start, am I that? Am I my thoughts? Well, I don't know. My thoughts change. So sometimes I have happy thoughts. Am I happy? Am I sometimes have sad thoughts? Am I sad? No, my thoughts also aren't who I am. Am I my feelings? Also they change. What doesn't change? That infinite consciousness, what doesn't change? This chant we just chanted. Let nothing disturb you, nothing affright you. All things will pass. All things will pass. But God changes not. And when we patiently go through the karma, the tapasya, the situations that God has put us into, with patience, looking at the end goal, in the end, God doesn't change. My essence does not change. So seclusion, introspection, silence, spending time in silence, these are all ways to start tuning into who we are inside, instead of always defining ourselves by how we look and how we act and what our role is. There's the analogy that I know you all know, you must know, it's the story of the sculptor. Beautiful, beautiful sculpture of an elephant. Someone said, oh, what a divine sculptor you are. How did you sculpt such an elephant? He said, oh, it was easy. I just chipped away everything that wasn't the elephant. So that's what we need to do. We need to chip away everything that we are not. And then what will we be left with? So when we study the saints, Saint Teresa of Avila, she's a perfect example of the saint. How become a saint? Read about the saints. Read the scriptures. Of course, the Gita is, listen to Krishna. What is he telling us who we really are? Just read it again and again. He tells us. We can't be burned. We can't be drowned. We're eternal. We are, we are infinite joy. We're everything that he is. This time of year I'm reading the Bible. Saint Teresa, she wrote several books. She was this nun in the 1600s who started this new wave of convents that were just living in poverty and for God, and they would only allow like 13 nuns per convent. They were mostly in silence, and they were in poverty, and she was opening them until she was like 70 or 80 years old, back in the 1600s, when some great hardship. And she would write about states of consciousness in prayer. There's a time when your will gets captured by Christ. When you can feel him right next to you. Even though you can't see him, it's just like in a dark room when you close your eyes and you know somebody's sitting right next to you. You can feel him there. So you read the words of saints and just, you thrill with that. Oh, I would love to feel Guruji next to me like that. I would love to feel Krishna next to me like that, Christ. And just read their lives. They're ordinary people like you. She's funny, and you just read, this is what the saints focus on. This is what they're thinking about. This is what they're talking about. And and then Swami Ramdas and Chaitanya and Tukaram, and think of all the saints that we can read about. And we can try to be like them. That's also how we become a saint. But we already are like them. But what's the difference between them and us? For them, remembering who they are is the only thing that matters. Only thing that matters. Experiencing God's presence is the only thing they care about. Experiencing Christ's love for Teresa is the only thing she cared about. And so we care about so many things. But what's the most important thing? That we feel God's presence, that we feel God's love in our heart. And Saint Teresa would even say to her nuns that she was training, that she was good. She would say, I don't want to hear you telling me you're not a saint. Because she must say, feel the presence of Christ, feel the presence. They said, I'm not a saint, I can't do it. She goes, I don't want to hear you saying you're not a saint. We're here to become saints. That's why we're here, to become saints. And then we may say, the very modest of us may say, who, me? It's not me. I can't become a saint. God chooses the saints. But you know what Yogananda said? God doesn't play favorites. God chooses those who choose Him. So that's what we need to do. We need to choose Him. And remember that joy and that love that we're seeking is inside. Because also the difference between the saints and us is that we're seeking that joy outside ourselves. We're still seeking it in somebody else. We want somebody else to give us that joy. We want that new house to give us joy. We want, then it wasn't the house, it was the car. It wasn't the car, it was the sofa. We all thought those things were going to give us the joy we were looking for, but we were never looking for those things. We were looking for the joy. And the saints, have the essence of it. No, the joy is the goal. And the love, I want to feel that love in my heart. I'm seeking it in my husband. I'm seeking it from my kids. I'm seeking it from my parents. All things will pass. And anyway, it's impossible for them to give you perfect love. It's impossible. Only God can give you perfect love. The God within them can give you that, but you can only find that within yourself. You can only see the God within them, the love within them, if you can feel it in yourself first. If we don't see it in them, it's because we don't feel it in ourselves. So, all the love and the joy that we're seeking, that the great saints feel continually in their ecstatic bliss and oneness with God, it's just because they have gone deep within themselves and found it. They found God inside. They found that infinite divine love and bliss inside themselves, and therefore they become saints. And all we need to do is remember who we really are and improve our knowing that that joy and that bliss, that Satchidananda, is where we've come from. It's who we are, and of course, it's our destiny. God bless you.
A few thoughts I will share too. When we, as the Daya also mentioned, when we talk about saint, that's really not for me. Because we have this some traditional notion of how the saint will look like and what they do generally in their life. Somebody wearing like ochre colored clothes and then sitting on a platform, all radiating and beaming love and joy. And then whenever people come, they give them a blessing, and then that's all. We'll probably think, yeah, I'll do something like that when I retire from my current responsibilities, isn't it? But what she also sort of referred to is actually that's not true completely. I used to watch a lot of movies which were sort of based on the life of different saints, and I certainly came across most traditional saints. Some of them she also alluded to, like we know Saint Francis of Assisi and then Saint Augustine, and then so these were more of those who had monastic robes and then that kind of. But I also came across many saints. There was, of course, Mother Teresa, who was previously part of convent, but most of her life she did in social work. Then there is this Dr. Giuseppe Muscati, and he was a doctor, and he was a saint as well. And then on our own lineage, we talk about Rajarsi Janakananda, Master calls him Saint Lin, who was a businessman. And then again, we have a picture of Lahari Mahasaya. We again probably know him very differently, because when we read autobiography of Yogi, all we know is he levitating in his bedroom while his wife watches. But that was probably just one incident, but the rest of his life, as we also know, he was just an accountant. Most of his days probably just went filling some book records and then submitting them to his bosses. So these all were also saints. In some, I think that gives a little bit of hope, or more, not only hope, a direction in which we can look. So when we talk about becoming saint, we don't talk about changing something outwardly necessarily. Again, there is a coffee book that Swami Kriyananda's book we have kept. If you look at different costumes that Kriyananda just wore over his lifetime, they are very different. Maybe probably most of us, those who have seen him, we saw him in a robe. But he was just here. There was nothing outward about him by which you can see that you probably like looking at him, but not necessarily the traditional sense. So then what is it that the essence of him? What is it that they do differently? Like some of us here are businessmen, some of us here are housewives, some of us here is a teacher. And then every one of them, we will find someone who was a saint and doing the same job. So how does these two sort of reconcile with each other? How would a saint who is a businessman be different than an ordinary, a regular businessman, if I choose to? What is it that they do differently? I used to go to a saint in Dehradun, and then I was very curious then, so I should be very attentive. And he would allow questions and answers, sort of a thing. So I will try to remember those questions and answers. And sometimes I won't understand his answers, so I would try to remember it again and again. And while going back, I would have some of his students with me, and then I'll ask them, "Oh, you remember that question?" Then they will help me and whatnot. So one time, one of his wise students, he says, "Look, it's okay, you can remember those question and answer, but don't worry about them too much. When that is over, just watch him. Watch him when he eats, watch him when he wakes up, watch him when he walks." And some things inside me sort of resonate. I said, he is probably saying something right. Because those questions and the answers will probably satisfy me, but what is more important is how they do it. How does a saint does his business? What is that difference? What is the inner reality which is different? And what is it? And that is what probably what we are trying to tune into. Lahiri Mahasaya probably didn't have some divine way of doing accounting, but he was doing the same thing, and that action was leading him to a unity. He was not necessarily just sitting there all the time meditating. And that is what the difference, if I may say, of our aspirations towards when we want to become a saint, from what part we have to do the action, but as Daya was saying, they never get, there is nothing compromising about that place where they have found. When we meditate, we try to stop the distraction and our tendencies, our mind going out all the time again and again, in the hope that we'll find something better within. And we do get a glimpses of it, don't we? When we sit there for some time, okay, this is feeling better. Because we're making the journey to that reality, as she was saying, as the affirmation was saying. Even a little bit of that vicinity just gives us. Saints, once they are found out, they make every attempt now not going away from this place. And that is the only job they have. Is that a place very important? Yeah. When we teach meditation, especially level 1, we use these big words, no? And then also they seem like very super consciousness, and then super conscious intuition, no? Expanding awareness to infinity. And these are important words and big words, but sometimes they feel very intangible. There is another saint, and Master has wrote about her in autobiography of a yogi. Her name is Ananda. And she wasn't literate as a result, but she was very exalted. And she would use this word khayal. I think it is the same khayal as we say in Hindi. It is spelled as Kheyal. And it sort of resonates very well. And that's what. She didn't necessarily give a big satsang or in a formal way, but she would just sit, and then she would say, "Khayal aaya hai." And then maybe she invite one of her disciples, Bhaiji, and said, "Bhaiji, we have to go to Kolkata." And then by this time, many of her students and her family knew about her exalted state. And her khayal wasn't just ki chodo, we will do something else. They knew there's something more. And but they are not rational. You see, they are not something very conveniently placed. When Bhaiji would say, we are in Varanasi, Ma, Kolkata is very far, and then that disciple, we don't even know if he will be there. And then they will pack, and then they go all the way to Kolkata. And sometimes there would be a very great need, and then all of a sudden they will understand why Ma had that khayal. Sometimes it was just ordinary visit. No, but she didn't care whether it was important or whether it was ordinary. It was something. That place, she never compromised. If that was a command, then that was a command from God for her. Everything. And she would just follow that. Recently a movie came in theatre on the life of Paramahansa Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda, The Answer. We probably know this story as well, where Master, while traveling, stops all of a sudden and says, wait, stop the car. And he goes to a shop and does some random shopping, some very, very small things which he is never going to use. Again, his disciple is observing, what is this guy doing? And then he comes back and then walks, and again, never uses those things. Now we realize, we say, and then the story ends with this lady coming to tears, the owner of that shop, and thinking that, I need exactly this money. And we get touched by that. But if you see what was Master doing at that time, he was just tuning in. It was not a very special detour for him. We many times travel in car. Where is our mind most of the time? It's either we are planning something or we are chatting. Master had a big mission. So probably when he was traveling, he was also having those kind of thoughts. Possible. He was also talking to his disciples. Possible. But while doing this, he never loses that touch internally. And because when all of us say, oh no, hold on, we have to take that detour because this is also important. It's not that these millions of people going through SRF or Ananda and reaching millions of people is my only job. No, my job is only to stay connected and follow whatever Divine Mother asks me to do. And this is universally acceptable, applicable. Doesn't matter whether you are a saint giving a sermon, whether you are a saint doing some social service, or you are a saint taking care of your family. You just have to stay where they sit and then follow. Very easy to understand, no? Is it as easy to practice? Probably not. But is it worth to practice that? By all means. Because as Ma was saying, the example, this may not be very conveniently placed where we are. This, by living this, it may not satisfy our friends and family, or even for that matter the world. But when we listen to that voice and then respond with all our heart, God inside our hearts at times smiles, and that smile, in that all the fulfillment that we are seeking for is ours. And as to end what Swami Kriyananda ji has wrote a ceremony, Festival of Life, which is a journey of soul, where he says, but we choose, he says, with all my mind, all my heart, all my soul and all my strength, I choose Daya. I choose only jointly.